This is Dennis Wing. We're going to look at the mode of the day, which is Lydian flat 3. It's mode number 25 in the For Music Geeks Only package at formusicgeeksonly.com. And as you'll see, mode number 25, it happens to be in C sharp minor. Now, this can be a little daunting, so I'm going to give you some tips on how to play it and how to think about it. You know, because if you read standard notation, you know, it's fine. You can read C sharp, D sharp, E, and then F double sharp. But can you remember all that? You know, can you remember all that while you're improvising? You know, you're not going to want to just stare at the page the whole time. So there's other ways of doing it. And you can also look at the guitar tablature if you play guitar. Another way you can look at it, as provided by the For Music Geeks Only package, is to look at the spatial relationships. So in other words, this mode goes 1, 2, flat 3, sharp 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now, if you're familiar with the Lydian mode already, then I'm not saying it's easy to play in this mode, but it's easy to remember that you just, like the name says, you play Lydian flat 3 with a flat 3, Lydian mode with a flat 3. But if that is difficult for you, there is another way to do it. Now, I use the word parent scale to refer to the scale whose equivalent is like mode number 1 for that scale. Let me just explain. When you're in D Dorian, all right, Dorian is the second mode of Ionian. Ionian is the same thing as a major scale. So in order to find, if you're in D Dorian and you're wondering how to construct it, you can think, okay, well, what scale has its second note is a D? And the answer is the key of C. The key of C is the only key whose second note is D. So in order to associate Dorian with its parent scale, you have to kind of think backwards. Like if this wasn't here, if this part wasn't here, you would have to think, okay, I know that Dorian is the second mode. So what key has its second note as D? Let's do one more example. All right. If you're in Mixolydian and you want the key of A, so A Mixolydian, and you're wondering how to build that scale, well, you have to know that Mixolydian is the 5th mode just by definition, right? So you have to ask yourself, what key has its 5th note as an A? And the answer is D. You would have to do a little music theory to arrive at that, but the notes in the key of D would be like this, and the 5th note, as you could see, right, is an A note. So you kind of have to think backwards. And then basically you would just rewrite this for Mixolydian. You would rewrite these notes from the point of view of A. So if you're not familiar with modes already, this is going to be very confusing. But if you are familiar, you know what I'm talking about when I say the parent key. So the parent key of A Mixolydian is D major or D Ionian, right? We're going to take that principle to the scale in question. The scale in question is Lydian flat 3. We know it's the 4th mode of harmonic major. I mean, you might not have known that, you know, without having looked at the chart, but you could see that it is. Now we have to backtrack and figure out what the parent key is here. So there's 2 things we need to know. We're in C sharp. So C sharp minor is the same as some harmonic major key. The reason we're going to try and find that out is because it might be easier for you to think harmonic major since it only has one accidental. It's a major scale with a flat 6 than it is to think of a sharp 4 and a flat 3 at the same time. And even if this doesn't apply in this particular mode, this principle may apply in some of the harder modes where it's easier to think the parent scale and just get the scale under your fingers and play it. So in order to determine the parent key of the Lydian flat 3 mode by the same principle, we have to first know what key that the backing track is in, and we have to know what mode it is. So we know from the chart that it's the 4th mode of harmonic major. So if you put C sharp here in other words, you're asking yourself what harmonic major key has C sharp as its fourth note. So you can use this spatial relationship diagram to kind of think backwards. When you go down a half step from C sharp, then that becomes C. And when you go down a whole step from C, that becomes B flat. And then down a whole step would be A flat. So the answer is the A flat harmonic major scale is the same as the C sharp minor Lydian flat 3. Because really you would call this note D flat to keep it consistent, and C sharp and D flat are the same. So how does that help you? You can play and think A flat harmonic major, and it'll work over here if that's easier for you. Again, the reason you might do that is because now you can just play an A flat major scale and just make sure you flat the sixth. There's only one accidental to worry about, rather than thinking C sharp minor, but then you're in Lydian, which is like a major mode. That can be confusing. So play along with the backing track in the For Music Geeks Only package, and let me know how you make out.